and listen closely. Everything is curable. We're in a new era, remembering what the earth has been whispering, shifting from conventional medicine's quick fixes beyond prescriptions. This is our journey back to the intelligence of the body. Welcome to Beyond the White Coat.
Welcome for another episode of Beyond the White Coat, where we return to the earth's natural medicines. Beyond the White Coat is for truth seekers, for those of us who are ready to hear the things that may not necessarily sit correctly with us. Maybe it's different from what we were raised to believe, to know, to think, kind of shatter some paradigms. And so in this show, we bring people who have a completely different perspective of what the norm has been, of what tradition has been, of what convention has taught us, so that you can decipher what is true for you. It's a different perspective. But ultimately, today we're going to be talking about consciousness. And consciousness demands that we decipher what is true for each one of us, and for us to explore who we really are. Today, we have Dr. Glen Rein, who studied at Harvard and Stanford and was assistant professor at the Mount Sinai School of Medicine. Dr. Glen Rein is a neuroscientist who also has experience and training in neurochemistry and psychoneuroimmunology. And Dr. Glen Rein left academia to pursue the understanding and kind of like take a deep dive into the Institute of Heart Math. So, I completely admire that, because as I've also sort of left the conventional medicine and mental health fields to really kind of do my own deep diving. But having spent so much time in that training in academia, to then look at it and say, this is not where truth lies 100%, to then use all of your training and skills to go and pursue the field of love and the field of energy medicine. So this is Dr. Glen Rein, folks, and I'd like for him to explain a little bit more with you on why you left and what you do.
Well, I was, anyway, so sorry, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you all for listening and tuning in. And I guess to start with my whole life story, I'm in my 70s now, so it's a long story, but the bottom line is that I was increasingly driven to understand esoteric science, energy medicine, and spiritual science, because I started to meditate in the 60s after I did all the drugs. And then I kind of realized that there was another whole world out there, and that world was not being covered by conventional medical scientific research. And as a research scientist, chosen specifically over a medical degree, I wanted to understand how energy heals the body. Actually, it all started when I read a scientific article by a PhD scientist who happened to be a nun, and she was studying the effect of healers on enzymes in a little test tube, and showed that with the intention and the will and the energy of the person, they could actually change the activity of an enzyme in a test tube. And I'm going like, what? I mean, first of all, what is this mind stuff that we're working with here to actually do that? And secondly, this is like so cool. Why do we need drugs for? Beyond the white coat. Well, the white coat's all about drugs and being administered drugs, when there is another whole approach to studying how medicine heals. Beyond the white coat. So I became very infatuated by all of that, and was increasingly frustrated with the kind of research that I was doing, in mainstream. So I left. I got invited to be part of Heart Math way back because I was studying consciousness, and they were very intrigued by that. And ironically enough, I spent several years, as you said, diving deep into the heart. And now I'm diving deep into the mind because it turns out you need both. From all the research that I've done with healers and people who have the ability to project their energy and manifest things in the physical world, change things in the physical world, whether it's a biological system or a physical object, which I've done a lot of research with water, as it turns out, because water is like really interesting and really cool, the way it responds to energy. But the point was that I became very excited to learn about the heart. I thought it was so cool to join a group, a community of like-minded people who had a lab. And not only did they have a lab, but they were studying love and positive emotions. I thought that was like, God, universe is providing me here, for a great opportunity. And it was a great opportunity. And now in the experiments that I did in those early days with a healer who had the ability to separate his mind from his heart, if you will, that he could put pure intention into some cells growing in tissue culture. Actually, in those days, I was working with tumor cells, and he could just put pure love. And it turns out that pure love by itself, unconditional love by itself, did not work. It did not change the activity or the growth of tumor cells in tissue culture. You needed to have the intention and the willpower and the mind. So then I became very intrigued, but well, okay, we all know, all you need is love, but turns out that's not true. Sorry, you guys, but you need the mind. You need both. And then I became very fascinated by the mind. What is the mind? And, the psychologists don't really know what the mind is. And in fact, the scientists can't even decide whether the mind is a byproduct of the brain, or as some people like myself believe that the brain is a byproduct of the mind, that the mind is consciousness. The mind is fundamental. To include the physicality as part of consciousness. But you could almost use the word energy to describe consciousness. Like the Chinese, they have their acupuncture meridians. That's an energy system. But it's also a physical system because the energy flows through these channels. So both.
So it's interesting because, as a biomagnetic practitioner, we have magnetite in our brain, and we have even more magnetite in our heart.
Right.
So when you connect these two through intention and through whether it's love or through emotion, you expand the field to magnetize or attract that which you're projecting. So if it's anger, sadness, resentment, unforgiveness, guilt, you're through your mind and through your heart space, you're projecting that. And that's what you're receiving, right? Punishment and conflict and all that, heavy stuff. But if we're projecting forgiveness and harmony and love and light, and then we're coming in to receive something completely different. We're magnetizing or attracting a completely different experience based on these two systems. And so it's interesting because when we try to separate one from the other, we're in a weakened state, right? But when we bring them together, I truly believe that that's where we evolve, and that's where we're in our power.
So speaking of magnetism, a good analogy there would be electromagnetism, because there is magnetism, but then there's also a lot of electricity in the body, and particularly the brain, but all cells run on electricity. So you got both, and both are termed electromagnetic energy, and that they two go hand in hand. And that is kind of the basis. That's the first layer beyond the physical. By now, scientists know a lot about not so much what positive emotions do, but what stress and negative emotions do, because as usual, the white coats study negative side and not the positive side. So they're all about, oh, look at all the damage that stress is doing. Look at all the damage that negative emotions cause.
So, Dr. Rein, you've developed technology in order to measure energy expansion or suppression, in a sense,
in the body.
In the body. Now, how do you use it? What are the things that you measure? You measure different treatments, different supportive supplements, different technologies, and tell us more about that.
So my method is an electrical method. I guess you could say I'm measuring the electrical energy in the body. We said in the introduction how important electrical energy is throughout the whole body, not only the brain. And I basically, and therefore, am measuring the electrical energy at the cellular level. I'm taking cells from the human body and measuring their energy with a standard electrical energy, with a standard piece of equipment that scientists have used before to measure the energetic properties of cells. So, of course, when we're talking about the brain here, I can't take brain cells out of the body. So the closest I can get is mouth cells, which happen to be available by in the inner cheek, which you can take and scrape off. Then is I measure people exposed to various kinds of external energies or internal energies through meditation, and see how their energy changes. And this is a first fundamental step in understanding how consciousness works, how the mind works, and how healing works for that matter. But when talking about raising consciousness, it's actually, ironically, it's the same phenomena that occurs when you're healing the body, because you need to get more energy into the body. Ironically enough, it turns out that there's disease states and unconscious states of being associated with a lack of energy, a lack of flow of energy, which the Chinese medicine has been telling us for years about meridians and acupuncture points, and the organization of that energy, which is called coherence. And most of the time, our energy gets rather chaotic and incoherent.
I think of it like a highway, right? We have all these meridians. It's like all these super highways going on in the body, and then all of a sudden, it's like there's a crash on the road, or there's like some object on the side on the road, and then there's obstructions, right? Or there's chaos happening, and when you clean those out, then the energy flows, and that's part of us raising our consciousness. In my practice in biomagnetism, one of the things that I see is that when people are really sick, it's harder to focus on meditation. It's harder to quiet the mind. People when they're sick, it's like many times they want distractions and a lot of movement. I got to keep busy. Keeping them from being able to go inward and in that place of stillness where you can just observe yourself, your thoughts, your feelings, and help them heal. And so you're mentioning that in meditation as being like one of the quickest, most powerful ways to be able to raise our consciousness. But when you have disease or when you have an ease, it's a bit of a challenge. I remember back in the day, people used to tell me, "Oh, let's go do yoga," and I thought to myself, "I want to do yoga. I want to do spinning. I want to do kickboxing. I want to do Zumba. I wanted to do anything that kept me super busy and action oriented, because being in that quiet state meant I had to delve deep into who I was and all the garbage that I had accumulated in terms of emotions, right? And so oftentimes I see, but I don't want to do meditation. I don't want to do. But when you finally get to a place where you're willing to look deep inside yourself and get rid of the junk, all that extra baggage that we've been carrying for so many years, that's when we begin to heal our physical body. And that's when we can really begin to become more in tune with our energetic field and that expansiousness of our consciousness.
Right. So we're back to square one again, expansion of that consciousness. So as a scientist, to study this phenomena, I said in the beginning, we started with the heart And then I realized the mind is important. So nowadays I have developed a model to follow, because before you even get to the meditation, the desire to meditate and the understanding that we need to meditate, you have to understand how the whole system works, and then you could go, oh, okay, then I need to raise my consciousness. I need to do X, Y, or Z. So the very first step is to understand the nature of the mind. This is science. This is something I can wrap my head around. No pun intended. And accept it, because some of the ideas that we're talking about in this show particularly, and in this show particularly, are pretty mind-blowing, if you pardon the pun. Because our left brain goes like, what are we talking about here? Astral travel, dematerialization, all this, that really bizarre stuff.
But it's so important, because I think, especially, as there's a tendency for men to be more left brain, when you could break it down to make sense of it, right? And in that very scientific place, then you begin to become aware of a new truth and a new reality, and then you can assimilate it in the heart,
assimilate it and accept it,
and in the heart, because
I see. Yeah.
Because with just the knowingness, right? Just the knowingness, it's the feeling of it that becomes true.
Right.
When you can assimilate it into the heart space of the feeling, like, you love your kids, right? You know it in your brain because you feel it in your heart, right? And so when you're able to connect those two, that's that position of being able to really raise our consciousness, and connect the two together. So
there are visualization techniques you can use. You're asking what personal techniques do I use? And one technique that I use, well, breathing is one very simple technique, that for sure. And a lot of schools use the breathing, deep breathing, regular breathing, and all that. But for me, imagery is the best technique to use, because the mind works with images. Sleeping and dreaming is also the lower. Well, that's good. Dreaming. Well, it's kind of halfway in between, because
it's the escape from the physical state,
from the physical, right? From the physical mind. But the point is that the mind is capable of creating images, understands images. You can raise your consciousness by showing people certain images, like the mandala. The Indians have been using this for thousands of years. You just look at a mandala and you go into an altered state because of the geometry, the sacred geometry, the energy, the coherent energy that's emitted by such a diagram like that. So the mind is all about images, and imagery is a great technique to use. And one of the images that I personally use, back to your original question, is to just visualize myself, doing my daily thing in my lower mind in a room. So I'm in a room. The lower mind is a room in my brain. And then over there in the corner, there's a spiral staircase. So I walk over to the spiral staircase, walk up the spiral staircase, and then there's a little trap door. You open the trap door and you physically, spiritually, mentally, whatever, bring your consciousness from your lower mind into your higher mind by walking up the steps. And when you're in your higher mind, what you see is whatever you want to imagine your higher mind will be. It may be clouds, maybe, a big open space to the sky, to God itself, because the higher mind is our connection to spirit and the divine. So that's the evolutionary step in raising consciousness. You got to bring your consciousness into that higher mind.
Which is what they use for like hypnosis and regression therapy. Is like they take you through a visualization, in which you're able to relax and then begin to access from a higher place memories that you could normally not access from a more conscious state, right?
Memories
you're able to access these deeper
Right.
cellular memories that you normally don't have access to. I've done some self-regressions, or even when I've participated in a group regression or a group hypnosis, I detach from what the guide is actually saying. And sometimes as I'm in that deeper relaxed state, I begin to see what they're about to say that they haven't said yet, which is tapping into that God consciousness, right? That's already aware of what's coming, even though they haven't said it yet.
Well, that's because the nature of higher states of consciousness is beyond space and time. So that once we get to that level of consciousness, we can go backwards in time or forwards in time. And this raises the interesting question and a further distinction and definition of these different states of mind in terms of the energies that they utilize. This is part of why I gave up academia, because in academia, it's all about the chemistry. And my degree is in biochemistry because I thought that was where it all was all at. You want to understand how the body works, how the brain works, how the mind, it's all biochemistry. Until I discovered that, well, yeah, but there's another level below that, which is the energy level, which controls and regulates the biochemical level. So that's more about the healing side. But once you're in the energy level of the lower mind, you have to raise your consciousness by raising the energies, by shifting your electromagnetic mind into, let's call it the quantum mind.
So we're always within a quantum field. It's our awareness or lack of awareness that we are functioning within quantum fields. And I think this is what most people are not aware of, right? Is that we are constantly creating, and we're constantly creating within a quantum field. Is that you're not aware that you're creating. So if you're thinking, oh my God, I'm broke. Oh, I don't have money to pay the bills, or life sucks, or why is life so hard? You got to work hard. You're constantly creating within this field a reality of your own making without realizing that you're creating it. And you think it's happening to you, but you're actually projecting this within the quantum field and you're making it your reality, right? And so if you're aware that you have the capacity to create your reality,
right.
And that you are functioning within a quantum field that's saying you create where you're from, you create where you're thinking from, then you can now function from a higher perspective and shift your reality.
Right.
So that's what I meant.
Yeah, and exactly. That's what we've been talking about. And that understanding is a big part of it. And then what I would use the word embodiment, you talk about in the heart, but then you got to, take it on, take it in, and realize what you just said, that yes, we do it all the time. In fact, on that note, there's a new film out that I happen to be in called The Art of Manifestation. This is done by some of the same people that did The Secret, but The Secret, which was really one of its first of its kind, was basically just saying, well, all you have to do is think it, and it will manifest. It will become reality. And it turns out it's a little more complicated, as we said, for a start. You have to have the mind and the heart energies involved. And I think you need to also raise your consciousness from your lower mind to the higher mind in order for this to truly manifest.
Right. Because, well, for example, people are like, okay, I'm going to make a lot of money. But deep down, they're afraid that they're not going to do it. So it's like right. You're thinking it, you're saying it, you're projecting it, right. But what are you really feeling deep down inside that we need to become aware of? Are we still in a place of doubt, blocks, like not really believing the words that we're saying?
Right. Well, that's the embodiment.
And not really feeling them into being, right?
That's the embodiment.
Exactly.
You have to really take it on and believe it and know that it's true.
Exactly.
So my approach to that is to use science. I'm a little biased. Okay, fair enough. But think about it. If your left brain can accept it and embody it in the way we're talking about, then it becomes real for you. And that's kind of what we're talking about. You can convince your brain that yes, you can do it. And yes, everyone can do it. It may take a little practice, but that the physics and the biophysics of the phenomenon exists. It's real science. It's real.
Thank you so much, Dr. Glen Rein. We've learned a lot today. And please tell us again, congratulations on the film. Tell the name of the film again.
If you go to YouTube and type in The Art of Manifestation Gold Carpet, you'll find a little trailer.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I look forward to watching the movie.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us today on Beyond the White Coat, our conversation on consciousness.
Thanks everyone for listening.
We'll see you again.